bowl and the pedestal are complete, and I'm quite pleased. I think they turned out very nice. I quite like this. Then I always like burls. Originally I was going to make a lid and finial and make them both black, but I've got another piece of burl here. I think I'm going to take this to make the lid from it and then put a black finial on top of that. I've put a 3/8 inch hole in so I can use a woodworm screw on it, and let's make a lid. I have the burl mounted on the woodworm screw, and I'm going to true it up. But before I do that, I believe the lid is going to have to be just under 5 inches. So I've set my dividers to 5 inches, and I'm going to scribe lines on here so I know where to true it up to. Now I'll do that by putting the left leg of the dividers onto the burl. The right one I don't want to touch because if it catches, it's going to come around and could cause some problems for me, pain included. Now I have the 5-inch diameter marked, and I can start truing it up to that. I'll be using my 1/2-inch bowl gouge to true this up. With the outside diameter trued up, I want to true up the face now. But first I'm going to define that 5-inch diameter with a parting tool. Typical burl, there's going to be lots of voids which I'll probably want to fill at some point. I want the height of the lid itself to be just around 1 inch, so I'm going to mark it 1 1/16. Give me a little bit to play with. And of course the rest of the burl, whatever I don't use for the lid, I will use in the future. This surface is going to be the top of the lid. I'm going to do some shaping on it, but I want a flat 1.5 inches in the center. So I've marked my dividers at 1.5 inches, and now we'll scribe lines again to define that. I'm going to use the parting tool to define the 1-inch thickness I want here, and then start shaping this, truing this up to that diameter. Want to use the bowl to see how that's going to fit. Slightly large. I'm going to take a little bit more off of there. I've replaced the pencil line designating the thickness of the lid, and now I'm going to start shaping the top. Okay, that's pretty much the shape I'm looking for. I'm going to do some filling a little bit and some sanding, and then I'll come back and show you where I'm at. I have the top sanded to 400 grit. I think it looks pretty good. That's a beautiful piece of burl. Although I've never really seen a burl I consider ugly yet. I kind of like them. I used the point of my skew chisel to put a divot right in the center, and I'm going to drill a 3/4 inch wide recess, 1/2 inch deep, that's going to hold the tenon on the bottom of my finial. The blank I have is 2 inches square and 11 inches long. First thing I'm going to do is round it over. Then I'm going to put a tenon on this end, 3/4 inch tenon, and I'm going to use this combination wrench to size it. I'll just take this off and verify that it's going to fit the recess I put into the lid. Fits very snugly, possibly too snugly. I think I'll just sand a little bit on that end just to very, very lightly reduce it. I used a bit of 100 grit sandpaper. I don't want to overdo it on reducing it. Still a snug fit, but not too snug. I'll go with that. I only want the finial about 4 inches tall. I'm not looking for a real tall finial on this. I think it would look out of place. So that's the upper limit of it. One thing I'm going to have to be real careful of here is not letting my tools touch the lid. I'm using the lid to drive it so that I can match up the curve. I want the widest part of the finial to be about 3/4 of an inch from the bottom of it, and I want that diameter to be about 1 3/4. I want it to be just a little bit wider than it is at the bottom. So I'll start working on that. I'll start working with my 3/8 spindle gouge. I have my calipers set to 1 3/4 of an inch, so I'll start to bring this down to that now. All right, it's down to the 1 3/4 at that point. I can start to do the other shaping now. As you can no doubt tell, I chickened out. Instead of using the lid to drive it, I've put another piece in here, put a 3/4 inch hole in it, and I'll use that to drive it so I don't inadvertently screw this up. When I get it down to that diameter, which is the same as this, then I will put this back on and true it up to it. To get into this smaller area, I'm going to use a tool I bought from Cindy Drozda. She calls this her vortex tool. It's quite a bit like a spindle gouge, except that there's no flute. And because there's no flute, there's nothing to catch. You won't catch the wings like you will. Now this one makes me a little nervous because it's got such a fine point on it. I can see where it would be very easy to get a catch. However, I haven't tried it before. Maybe I should have practiced a little. Could make myself look real bad here, but let's give it a shot. Now I think I'll use some sandpaper and do from here over, just clean that up. I have it sanded now from here to here. Very shortly I'm going to part this off, just to make sure that that 3/4 inch tenon, it has a little assistance holding it in there. I'm going to put some hot glue, just a small bead right along the joint. Before I part this off, I'm going to sand this part up to about here. Now I have it sanded all the way up to here. My next step is going to be parting this off. I'll support this a bit with my hand just to make sure it doesn't break off. Before parting this off completely, I'm going to remove some of this wood just to make it a little less stress when I'm finishing it. That should allow me to have a little less stress on the wood when I'm turning the end. It's making me a little nervous. When this lets go, I'm not sure where this might go. So I'm going to cut this off with a saw. Now it's time to turn the top of the finial. Alright, I'm just going to sand this now. I think I've done a decent enough job. I should be able to start with about 280 grit. I'll be back. Well, I'm quite happy with this. I was not looking for a real delicate finial. I think it would be out of place on this piece. What I'm going to do now is take this glue off and remove it and see how it fits on here. I may have to do a little fine tuning. If I do, I will do that. Then I'm going to put it back in this block and use that to drive it when I put the India ink on it. I'm trying to pull it straight out. I don't want to break that tenon. And there we go. One of the things I like about hot glue is that it doesn't generally leave any residue, and it seems fine here. I like the way it's fitting there right now. There's a very small flat spot at the top of the lid itself, but I kind of like that. I'm going to leave it that way. So I'm going to take this out, put it in the other block that I used, and then I'm going to dye this with India ink, just as I did the pedestal. I won't bother showing that because I already did it on the pedestal video, and then I'll be back when this is finished. And now it's time to part the lid off of the block. As you can see here, I was turning it too fast. I forgot to turn it down from 2000 RPM. So I was smoking and burning this. I eventually just cut the rest off with a saw. Now I've mounted it on a 3/4 inch tenon on this piece, and it seems to be running true. I want to turn the inside to make sure that it doesn't move. I'm going to put some hot glue on the joint. As you've probably figured out by now, I'm a big believer in hot glue. As long as you heat it up real hot, it really does a good job. I'll just give that a minute or two to cool, and then I'll turn it. The glue should be cool enough now to turn this. I'll just add a couple of grooves for decoration with the point of the skew chisel. Now I'm going to sand this, and there are a few voids here. I'm going to fill those with CA glue first and some sawdust. Then I'll sand it and I'll be back. With the bottom of the lid sanded now, I'm ready to take it off. I just need to remove this hot glue, preferably without screwing up the finish on the lid. And there we have it. And with that, it's finished, but maybe not complete. I'm not quite sure I like the proportions. I'm thinking maybe the pedestal should be a little wider at the base, perhaps a little bit taller, and that the finial should be taller and slenderer. So if you have an opinion on that, I'd appreciate it. I've not glued these pieces together yet, so I can change them. And I may just make a different pedestal and finial anyway. If I do, I guess there'll be a part 4 just to show you what I've come up with. So thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this, maybe got something out of it. Have a great day in your shop. Be safe there. If you haven't already subscribed, please do. And have a great day. Thanks for stopping by.